welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the project for my track Slap, which was released on my album Funkstep, which just came out recently on Dirt Monkey's label 19K. Very exciting. This is a drum and bass track. If you haven't heard it, I'll just play you a little snippet now, and then we'll yeah, break it down and see how I did it. Cool. So yeah, you get the idea. Yeah, I've actually had this track knocking around for like, I don't know, maybe since about May last year. I think I was when I wrote it, and I was playing it over the festival season last summer. So I think this is the only track on the album really that I didn't write over lockdown. Like most of the album, I just wrote it in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I kind of had this one on the back burner for a while, and yeah, it just seemed to make sense to throw it in there. So yeah, let's get into it. In case you didn't notice, this was very much inspired by Duster and Locust. Those guys are fucking awesome. They've been making some really cool, funky drum and bass. And I have a feeling that I made this when I kind of first found them and was like just super stoked on their, yeah, the way they married like the funky vibes and drum and bass and all very synthy stuff. So yeah, most of it's kind of based around this this guy here, and that kind of call and response with this slap bass thing. And originally this chord was actually on Operator, I think. And then at the last minute I decided to kind of like remake it, and you can see here I kind of made if I kind of copy and paste this and show you, I basically like froze. I'll show you the project in a moment. I made a separate project and like just made a really long chord that kind of like, yeah, with loads of like phases. It has like a lot of different tones in it. And yeah, essentially I kind of replaced the operator with this. And kind of like cut different sections out of it, so it kind of like had a little slightly different flavor each time. So yeah, I'll show you that project really quickly now. So yeah, this is the pad project. Yeah, it's got a nice sexy chord in there. A saw wave with some detune, unison, and I've also got dimension, distortion, flanger, phaser, chorus, a little bit of EQ, and some multiband compression. And yeah, I've just flattened that and copied it into the main project. So yeah, that chord's kind of one of the main sounds. Then also obviously this slap bass, which I will show you. This is actually from one of Sticky Bud's sample pack. If I like just bring this out, it's actually like 100 BPM originally. And yeah, I've just sped that up loads. I think I probably used beats mode. Let's have a look. Yeah, I have. Yeah, in this case, I mean, because I've got getting the bass from the sampler itself, I've chosen to use beats mode to keep it a bit cleaner. I mean, I just find that Complex Pro, when you kind of like warping something that fast, it'll just end up sounding a bit shit. And you can see I've kind of like cut little holes in it as well, which just kind of really emphasizes the rhythm. And then yeah, obviously got a shitload of processing on it. Got this flanger. I mean, let's do the old classic, turn it all off and go through it one by one. So yeah, this flanger is obviously, as you can see, there's no LFO on it. It's not really doing much, just giving it a tiny bit of width. Then erosion, that's just giving it a little bit of that top end. OTT, of course, which is also brightening up, squashing it a bit. You can see I've played around with the EQ a little bit there, just like boosted the lows. A bit of glue compression in EQ, mostly just bringing out the highs, and like a saturator with soft clip on, just to like cut the tops off. I mean, it looks pretty simple, but I think there was a lot of tweaking involved in that over like to get it right. Because obviously making like a live sound sit alongside quite a big electronic sound can be quite difficult. But yeah, I think we sorted it. Cool. Yeah, I guess I might as well go over the other bass sounds whilst we're in the bass group. So the top here, this is just a sub, just a sine wave. I think it's got a little bit of, yeah, another sine, just FM'd into it, which just gives it a little bit more. Yeah, it's just some higher harmonics, and that's basically doubling with the synths. So yeah, as you can see with this, it was really about that interplay between the bass and the synths, and it's almost like they all gel together and you can't really tell what's what, but yeah, I think it worked quite well. And then, yeah, I mean, there's only like this one or two of the patches here really. This is this serum here. I really like how this one turned out. Yeah, let's do the same. We'll turn all of these off. So yeah, it just sounds quite dull without all that on it. Yeah, we just got a square here with this saw wave FMing from that. I think most of the sound's probably coming from this distortion, which is set to diode 1. I've also got it set to bandpass, so that means it's bandpass filtering the distortion part of it. And yeah, I think it just got this really subtle LFO on quite a lot of little parameters, like the mix on the distortion. That's something I've been doing quite a lot recently, is like using LFOs on the mix of the volume of stuff, not just like the cutoff and shit. It just kind of like, I don't know, rather than like cutting off the high end, if you change the volume of it, it kind of like, it's still there when it's a bit lower, rather than completely removing those frequencies, you know? You just turn them down. And yeah, that's also on this low pass. Yeah, a little bit of EQ on there as well, a little bit of dimension. But yeah, really simple patch. Most of it's coming from all this processing here. So this is another thing I do with quite a lot. Ableton amp. So if you hear it without, and then with. I do this quite a lot with my bass sounds. I mean, with all sorts of sounds, but yeah, if you just put an amp on and then just turn the dry right down. Like if we turn it right up, wow, it sounds nasty. But just a little bit of it. And on dual mode too, because it's quite a nice stereo vibe to it. Yeah, and then you do that plus OTT. So I'll just group those two together, and you can hear without and with. Just a really cool little trick that I've been using a lot. Glue compressor, squashing it a bit. This sample delay. Not really sure what that's doing. Must have been a reason for that. Probably just to get it, move it slightly out the way of the kick, make some space. Bit of EQ and a saturator just to squash it again. That's pretty much it. And then we got this little guy, just Just a classic drum and bass Reese. I think most of this, I think the original patch will just be, yeah, it's just a really simple. So yeah, this is yeah, just 2 saw waves, just tuned to 29 part on the fine tune. There's also this little band pass, just creating some more movement with this LFO here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a little bit of wide on there with the dimension, but super simple. Oh yeah, also make sure you have the random turned right down when you're making these detuned sounds, otherwise it'll just doesn't necessarily react in the same way. And then yeah, similar trick again. Got the amp on there, only a tiny little bit there. And then similarly to the OTT, I've just boosted with the EQ this time. And then I've got this auto filtered in a notch. Let's have a look at the automation there. Just accentuating the movement that was in the main filter. And the OTT's here after the filter this time. Then yeah, saturator again, soft clip. I mean, as you can see, I often have quite a similar chain with these kind of neuro-y sounds. It's like usually amp, and then like an EQ or an OTT to bring those frequencies out, and then often like a glue compressor to squash it again, and then a saturator just to kind of like give it, yeah, cut the tops off and just kind of squash it right down. Nice. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the bass. And that's all going into this bass group here. There is a few little bits here where I have it like sending to a reverb. And also filtering out. Just at the end of like sections, just to like, I don't know, I think sometimes it's a bit too sudden if you go from like a full drop to a breakdown and the bass carries on to the end of that bar, you know? So that just lets it flow a little bit better. And yeah, I got a little bit of compression on the basses there. I do this on all my groups, but not too much. I mean, it depends on the track, really. Like, if you've got loads of really heavy basses going on that are all different sounds, it can be quite good to give it a real squash, but I don't know, I try not to go too overboard. I feel like that's the point where you can make some bad decisions in the mix and like things start to clip if you're kind of processing them all together too much in the groups. I think the groups are just for like gluing, not too much processing, you know? So I got a little bit of EQ there too. Again, this was probably tweaked over like a long time. And then yeah, just this Pro L. Just kind of catching those transients, because I mean, like, this guy has some real sharp transients, as does this. So yeah, I mean, like, it looks like the limiter's doing a lot, but it's more just, yeah, just catching those, just catching the first little bits, you know, just the initial transients. Yeah, I guess we'll go over the synths now, since we've already covered one of those. This one was also made. This was actually made when I initially first wrote the song, like a long time ago in the first version. I did open up the project before to see if the patch was still there, but apparently not. Yeah, for some reason I've flattened it. I think probably because I started on my old laptop. Like, yeah, I'm now on a Hackintosh, which actually runs pretty fast, but my laptop was not so fast. So yeah, it was a lot of freezing things and flattening things for the album. I did actually do the final mixes on this machine, but yeah, most of it was written on my laptop, which is conking out by the time I got to the end of like these projects. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, just a really nice chord, something really simple. Just kind of sets the tone. Looks like this guitar is actually from Slink sample pack. And ironically, it's not even one of the ones that I recorded for him. This is one of the Beat Fatigues. And this is kind of another case of like, you know, if I'm going to use stuff like that from a sample pack, I'm not using it at the tempo it was made at, or for the style of music it was made for. Just because that way I'm being more creative with it, and it's not like, I don't know, it's less likely if you use samples from a sample pack that's not made for the genre you're making. It's just, yeah, you've got a lot higher chance of it being sounding original and unique, and you're playing with the samples to make them fit into your song rather than just like dragging and dropping, which you can do that too, but yeah, in this case, I mean, a lot of the times when I use loops like this of guitar, I usually intend to replace it myself, but in this case, I think I actually tried at one point and it just didn't really work, so yeah. Anyway, I've got sidetracked there. Back to the synths. We've got a lead here. I guess this is quite a big part of the track as well. This is super simple. Let's just turn off this. If you've seen any of my operator tutorials, it's kind of quite similar to how I do a lot of that stuff. Just a raw saw wave, and then we've got the envelope turned up here, so it's affecting this filter. That's being sent to a lot of reverb as well, and I guess the envelope's giving it quite a lot of its sound as well, just the volume envelope. Just there's a release on it. Even that sounds quite nice, you know. Then just got a little bit of dimension expander to give it some width. EQ, cutting out a lot of the lows. Also accentuating the point where that filter really like grabs it. Chorus, just a tiny little bit. Yeah, really most of that's just coming from the reverb send, which is, yeah, just a basic reverb. Fucking hell, it's on economy. It's not even on high. What am I playing at? Yeah, what else? What other synths have we got going on? So, okay. So this is just a slight variation. I think I've just like EQ'd it a little bit differently to the other bit. But yeah, that'll be probably from the same big old serum. Oh no, this is from a slightly different patch that I made in that same project. Yeah, what else we got? I think this is just a high string. High string, but it's obviously come from like a more of a synth. It's more of a synth high string than like an actual natural sounding one. Just something that gives it a little bit of energy. Also got this like really basic ARP thing going on, which kind of like slowly builds here. Just gonna unfreeze that. Yeah, it looks like I've got that kind of like being sent to a delay and a reverb, but within an effect rack. So I'm like automating the level of the chain rather than like the dry wet. So it means that when it reaches the end of these sections, I can like cut it back down and there'll be no tail. And also we just got the dry signal in the middle, so that's unaffected. So the kind of delays and reverbs are happening around the main sound, but I've got more control, you know. And sometimes I might EQ those separately as well. But yeah, it's just, I find, yeah, effect racks are really useful for just having a bit more control over sounds like that. And yeah, just that stuff like that's just a really easy way to kind of create tension, just like sending things out to a reverb and then like bringing them back down again, you know. Yeah, sorry, the actual patch itself is pretty simple. I think that might even just literally be a square wave with some volume enveloping. Yeah, it is. Doesn't even have any filtering on it. And we got that guy, bit chorus, bit of overdrive, just kind of giving it some brightness and some thickness. Glue compressor, EQs, cutting out a lot of the lows, and then just this auto pan that's kind of like just making it kind of live in the sides a bit more. Yeah, that's kind of like, you can barely even notice that. What else have we got in the drop kind of sections? I think that's it for the drop bits. Sorry, I know I'm going all over the place here. It's been a while since I've looked at this project. It's quite a relief when this was done. This is one of my bigger projects, at least in terms of how long I spent on it. Yeah, what else we got? Yeah, loads of these are just really basic. I think this is kind of like what the synth and the drop was originally like. Yeah, I think it has more of an impact when it switches to a different synth than the drop. That's probably why I did it. So yeah, I think the main thing with this guy is like this. Ooh, that's just white noise. Yeah, it's this pitch envelope, and then a sort of filter closing on it. It's like, whoa. And then, as you just heard, a bit of white noise layered, which also filters down at the same time. So I would have made that by duplicating this patch and then changing the oscillator to noise. Yeah, white noise is just really handy to like give brightness to sounds like that. Probably something else I kind of like took from the Dosser and Locust sound, because they do that a lot as well. And yeah, a bit of chorus, bit of flanger on that. EQ, bit of reverb, compressor. Another really simple sound. Yeah, I think that's most of the sounds now. I'll have a look at this little pad. I think I added this one later. Just because it's all been kind of centered around just the F the whole time. So I wanted like the breakdown to have this like... Oh yeah, I added this lead as well. So yeah, I wanted the breakdown to kind of have a bit of a shift in harmony. So have some different root notes, basically. So it kind of suddenly starts to feel like a chord progression. Just a really simple progression there. And you can see the cut-off slowly filtering up. And yeah, that's probably just a really simple detuned saw. And yeah, just automating the cut-off there. That's literally it. Super simple. And then this guy, which is another thing I kind of added a bit later, just to kind of give it a bit of a feature in the middle, you know, because like the second drop's quite similar to the first, so I wanted the breakdown to be like something in its own right, other than just a bit between the two drops, you know. So let's have a look at this. So yeah, we got this square wave. That's got a bit of unison on it as well, actually. Then we got this saw wave, 1 octave up, a bit of noise on there as well. Got this LFO assigned to the cutoff. Then just a few bits and bobs on here, kind of the usual, really. Just like, I mean, I find this quite like just a good way to give simple sounds a bit more character. Sorry if you can hear those those police cars out there. Yeah, a simple way to give sounds character is just like a little bit of all these things, you know, like a little bit of flanger, a little bit of phaser, like not loads of one thing, just kind of loads of little things, which just collectively give it the sound a lot more character, you know. So yeah, I got chorus, phaser, flanger, bit of distortion, bit of dimension, going through an OTT, multi-band thingy, reverb. Also got the LFO assigned to a little EQ cut here. Just taking out that harshness, also adding a little bit more emphasis on the kind of filter shape. And then again, a little bit more chorus, a little bit more flanger. And this is a little rack I made, as you can see. It's just an overdrive, but only applied to the mids. So I've got like different multiband dynamics where I've just soloed the low in this one, I've soloed the mid in this one, and I've soloed the high in this one. This is just like the default multiband dynamics without any actual compression, just to split the frequencies. And then I've just got the overdrive just on the mids, so it's not affecting the low end or the high end. Yeah, it's just something I use quite a lot. I mean, plugins like Saturn let you do that anyway, like multi-band distortion units, but you can just do it like in an Ableton rack like that without having to spend money on some fancy plugins. Bit of EQ, cutting out the lows, some more of that harshness, delay. So it's ping pong. Got an old OTT. With a compressor. And saturator. Also being sent to our reverb. Cool. I think that's pretty much it for the synths. Sorry I kind of jumped all over the place a little bit there, but yeah, there's actually a lot more going on than I thought. But yeah, it's all pretty simple stuff. Yeah, let's have a look at the drums, and then we'll have a look at sort of effects and vocals and stuff. I know people normally start with the drums, but you know, just being a hipster up in here. So the drums actually something I spent a long time on, and just changed up quite a lot. Speaking of Dotson Locus, actually, Rene from Dotson Locus was kind enough to when we connected. He played one of our events, and yeah, we kind of stayed in touch after that. And I sent him this track because I figured he would really like it, and he kind of really helped me get over the final hurdle of like making it sound legit. Because drum and bass is fucking hard to get sounding up to standard because the standards are just so high. So yeah, he kind of pointed me in the right direction with a lot of stuff. One of the main things being that I actually switched out the original kick for a kick I made in Kick 2, which is this guy. I think the original kick and snare was pretty weak, but yeah, it sounds pretty good now. So yeah, I got this kick I made in Kick 2, then a few different snares laid up here. This is a snare I made, and it's layered it with more kind of like live sounding snare. I often do this with get like a really fat electronic-y snare, and then layer it with like a kind of filthy, tape distorted, live sounding snare, where you like fade the start off, cut all the low end out, give it some width. Yeah, it just really brings it all together. That's probably giving it some more top end as well, and a bit of transients. This is a little cymatic sample. But yeah, a lot of the low end cut out of that as well. And another snare here. This one's pitched up quite a lot, just giving it kind of just more of a snap. And yeah, there's not a lot of processing on most of those, but it's kind of about giving each thing its own place. I try not to layer stuff like that too much, because yeah, you can easily run into a lot of problems. But yeah, I mean, it all has its place. This is kind of the main body. That's kind of like the mid-rangey, high character. That's kind of the real electronic-y thwack and sizzle. And then that's just kind of filling out what's left. And yeah, as you can see, if you didn't see my other project breakdown, I always have my kick and snare going through a drum rack on the same channel, beef. Just because those two sounds, you know, they should mostly be the same kind of volume and the same presence. So I find it easy to keep tabs on it there, and to compress them together, just kind of makes it sit better. I also used to use that as a handy way of if you wanted to sidechain to the kick and snare at the same time, you just sidechain it to that channel, which makes it way easier. In this case, I've got a sidechain trigger set up here. What else we got going on? I think there's probably another snare layer. Yeah, probably just realised it needed that. Just a little bit more high end. This guy here, that's a little break I made in Addictive Drums. Great fucking plug-in. But yeah, I've obviously flattened that. Just another snare. Yeah. That's actually giving it quite a lot of character. This is just a bunch of hats. Not really any processing on those. Probably should be at least cutting the low end out of those, but whatever. It's this shaker. I think that's from a Nuki pack. That's a ride that's playing on the snare. And this is a ride that's playing all the way through it. Quite heavily sidechained. Not really processed much though. And we've got a crash here. Basic shit. This little snare rolls from a Danny Bird pack. Also just automating this high cut as well. High pass even. Also just a bit of flanger on that. Just give it a bit more width. What else we got? This little hat loop. I think most of these kind of loops are probably stuff that I put in like long after the original sort of first version. Because I don't know, yeah, like I say, drum and bass, it's hard to get up to standard. And to create a lot of that energy is just about banging in loads of loops. Well, for me anyway. I mean, obviously that's the lazier way to do it, but just kind of the more things you have going on, shuffly, and as long as everything's got its own place, yeah, just because it's so much more energy when you have like all these little bits and bobs happening on top of each other, you know. So yeah, a little hat loop. What's this guy? It's like another fucking ride thing. So yeah, we've got like more bits coming in on the kind of second 16 of the main drop, just to kind of like give it a little lift. Again, I've got these little chops from the Think Break. Just a little subtle guy there. Yeah, that's mostly it for the drums. What's this guy? Oh yeah, this is like a little tom build. Just wanted to make that second drop, second build have a little bit something different, a little bit more tension. Kind of makes it a bit more like cinematic feeling as well, you know. Oh yeah, also this snappy thing which kind of goes all the way through it. Mostly just noticed it in the intro, but yeah, that happens all the way through the song. Another sound that should probably not have so much low end, but I think it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know, sometimes you think that taking all that low end out of something would work, but in this case I think it kind of loses a lot of its character. But yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, similar to the bass group, got that going through a compressor and a limiter just to squash it all down. Probably doing a bit more than it should be. Also cutting the lows 50 hertz. Yeah, drum and bass. I mean, this kick's actually quite low for a drum and bass tune, but most drum and bass kicks are kind of hitting around like 80 and 90 hertz, and it's quite important to cut out everything below that so that there's space for the sub. And yeah, just in general, because like the nature of drum and bass kind of originates from speeding up old breakbeats, and you know, when you speed something up, you're pitching it up. So therefore, you know, most of that low end doesn't really exist anymore. So the kind of sound of drum and bass has become like these kind of higher pitched sounds compared to like glitch hop or dubstep, which is a bit more low. So yeah, I mean, just something to bear in mind. Like when you're making different kinds of genres of music, you kind of got to pay attention to like the mixed down styles and the tuning of the drums. Like drum and bass in general, everything's pitched up a bit more. House, dubstep, a bit lower, and longer sounds. Drum and bass is a bit shorter sounds, you know. Yeah, cool. I think that's pretty much it for the drums. Almost there. Sorry, this video seems to be dragging on, but what's this guy? Let's see. Let's just bring him out. So yeah, it's kind of just a little tiny part of a phrase. Let's put that on its own channel just so you can hear what it actually sounds like. Again, that was originally at 105 BPM, so I've obviously got taking it from a pack that definitely wasn't made for drum and bass, but
Been so hot, been so hot, been so hot.
so yeah, not the coolest phrase or anything, but just that little word hard. Kind of doesn't even sound like a vocal now. Just gives it some character. Yeah, just a bit delay and EQ, compression. Probably being sent to a bunch of reverb as well, yeah. I think it's always good to have like a little bit of like, I don't know, something that comes from a human voice, something that's like a bit of foley, maybe like some room ambience or some tape sizzle. Like all these little things are like what makes something sound human, like even if it's subconsciously. And I think it's important to have at least one of those things in a dance music track, otherwise it just sounds just sterile, you know. It's easy to bypass having to do that when you like sampling shit, because all the soul and vibe is already there. But when you're making something that's all original and you're not really using like old school samples and shit, you kind of got to create that spice in other ways. Yeah, got this guy, which is classic. This is pretty cool. So yeah, there's a video of every single Michael Jackson grunt ever, which obviously is quite funny to listen to, but it's pretty fucking cool for sampling. Let's listen to it. So yeah, you just got boom. Well, actually originally came across that for when we did Be Funky with Too Good, and we like cut it up and put it on loads of different pads, and you can probably hear a bit more clearly in that track like that it's Michael Jackson, but in this case I've just got one little sound from it, which is this little sounds like that's maybe pitched as well. No, it's not, but yeah, that's just a cool little tip there. That video is kind of meant for comedy, but it's actually really fucking useful for sampling. Bit of overdrive on it. Obviously dimension expander as well, give it some width. Yeah, the overdrive just really makes it sound crunchy and like it's sampled from vinyl or something. I think it's probably like a shitty MP3 since I ripped it off YouTube as well, so that just kind of gives it, I don't know, just makes it sound more legit. Makes it stand out more. Cutting a bit of lows out there, a bit of reverb. Almost there, guys. Yeah, effects here, got a little reverse crash, standard procedure. Obviously cut out some nasty frequency there. Just a few sweeps and shit. Got a fall, got a rise. Got this riser. Probably, yeah, been warped a bit. Quite a lot of lazy sounds in this, but you know, most of these kind of effects sounds I don't really, I mean, I'm actually working on a sample pack now, so I am making a lot more of these now, but yeah, kind of when you're in the flow of a tune and you just kind of like, or in the case of this track where it's like, shit, I need to make it sound more exciting, and you kind of somewhat run out of steam with it, just throw in some shit from a good sample pack, you know, as long as you're not getting the main the main kind of crux of your tune coming from a sample pack, I think it's fine to use, you know, little bits and bobs of them here and there. And yeah, especially for effects, they all kind of sound pretty much similar anyways. It can be helpful to make your own effects sometimes if you really want to tailor it to like the tune, but yeah, in this case I've just thrown a load in, and that worked for me. Finally, we've got these like little effects perks. Now this is something that Dotter and Locust, Rene, shoutouts to Rene. Yeah, when I was like almost there with the tune, he was like, there's like little bits, I don't know, let's just turn them off. Like in the first drop. Like those little drops where you can just hear the ride. Like that bit there. Yeah, he was like, there needs to be more kind of happening in the background. So with these guys, it's just like little kind of like incidental bits and bobs. So that rim hits on that exact ride that he was talking about. And then that hits on the snare. Just kind of like every time there's a gap where there's no bass and there's no synths, just a little cheeky percussion sound comes in that you can't quite hear. Very very subtle, but it does really make a difference. There's also this guy. It just kind of signals the start of the second half of the 16s in the first drop. Oh no, it is in the second drop, so. Again, very subtle. And yeah, I think these are all like pretty minimal processing. Yeah, not much going on really. Yeah, there's a little bit of erosion on this guy. Just a tiny bit. This guy. That's just the tail end of a of a rim, just so that the transients aren't interfering with the drum. This guy. Just a little bit of saturation, some EQ, simple as fuck. This bell. Dimension expander. As you can tell by now, I love that guy. Bit of EQ to bring the highs out, take out the lows. Reverb, compression. Similar with this guy. Reverb, compression, saturator, EQ. Bam! So yeah, I mean that's it. I'll quickly run through the master here, although it wasn't actually mastered by me in the end. But yeah, I did manage to get it sounding pretty good on my own. So yeah, I've got a utility here. It's just kind of, as you can see, it's kind of like going over 0 here, which is probably shouldn't be doing. But yeah, utility is just bringing it back down again. I'm cutting out the lows from the sides using the mid-side EQ, and I got this probably long tweaked over EQ going on. There's quite a lot of high end in it, but yeah, like I said, this is kind of one of those projects where I picked it up again later and like did quite a lot of extreme stuff too, like that. I wouldn't normally do that necessarily, but yeah, the original version was just super lacking high end, so there. I also really love this SSL EQ from Waves. Just doing like some little tiny bits of EQ in. Like, I'll play you with that. And with. What it's doing is very subtle, but yeah, I always find it's just like a nice thing to put towards the end of the chain there. Tiny bit of compression. Quite a fast attack and release there because it's drum and bass, you know, it needs to kind of keep up. And then absolutely ragging it through a Pro L by the looks of it. Cool. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks for sticking around this long if you made it this far. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And yeah, don't forget to join me on patreon.com/fatherfunk, where you'll be able to access the project file and the stems for this track. So yeah, go sign up there. I've just launched that. Very exciting. And yeah, thanks again for sticking around, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Bye.